Great. We'll go ahead and get started. My name is Carrie Anderson. I own Insight Consulting Practice. I work out of Coeur d'Alene and I work out of Jackson Hole, Wyoming. More importantly, I work wherever you need me to work. And so right now, evidently on a Wednesday in sunny Coeur d'Alene, I'm working in my home office. So for those of you that I have not had the pleasure of meeting yet, I inadvertently will always refer to myself as a nonprofit staff person. I had the good fortune of working in this sector for about 22 years as a nonprofit executive and lead fundraiser, and I worked for 7 nonprofit organizations in Washington State and in Colorado. I finished my time in this sector working for others as the Foundation Director for Central Washington University in Ellensburg. And as I mentioned, I now reside in both Coeur d'Alene and Jackson. And I'm in Coeur d'Alene right now because we're having an internet bandwidth issue in Jackson, Wyoming. Imagine that. So I'm in Coeur d'Alene for the foreseeable future and absolutely happy as heck to help my wonderful friends at the Idaho Nonprofit Center out with this particular, I think this is my last one for a while, last webinar on some of our pivots that we can do to better position our nonprofits in this land of uncertainty. So today, we are going to be talking about adapting your strategic plan, and have no fear if you do not have a current plan or if you have no plan at all. There are certainly pieces and parts here until or that you can use right now as you start to move from what I would call full crisis reaction to, oh, this may be our new norm, and how we navigate through this. So for those of you who have not been on this before, I've got a chat section up. Please feel free to pop any question you may have into the chat, and I will do my best job possible at pausing after each slide to answer your questions, and most certainly there will be a Q&A at the end. We will also make sure that this recording is available for all of you. Evan usually sends this out, as well as my PowerPoint deck at the close of the call. So you'll also have resources there. So, and I can't see you by design because I behave like a cat that way. I will be busy saying hello and commenting on hair and jewelry and smiling faces. So I am not seeing you by design. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to walk through kind of a current plan analysis. Again, don't feel badly if you don't have one, but we'll give you some tips and tools as to what you can do. We're going to talk about when to adapt and when to review, because some of you may not need to do this right now. Some of you may needed to do it about 17 minutes ago, right? Or on March 13th. We'll talk through what adaptation actually looks like. And most importantly, for any plan, we actually have to move this to implementation. So that's our agenda for the day. And let's just kind of talk about current plan, right? So if you are fortunate enough to have a strategic plan as a part of your current business strategy, you know, all it is fancy talk for us having very clear delineated goals and objectives and strategies for you all to use as a funnel for how you do business, right? I always appreciated having a plan, though I didn't necessarily appreciate how the plan was put together, right? I appreciated having a plan because it allowed me a document to focus on when you had wonderful but ill-informed board members, God love us all, who said, hey, Carrie, I think this is a really great idea. Let's do this. Well, if it's not part of the plan, we're not doing it. Doesn't mean that it's not important. It wasn't part of how we determined that we were going to strategically hit our mission, right? So a plan is super important for us to be able to say no. A plan is super important when it comes to being able to raise funds. And now more than ever, it's important to be able to have written goals in front of us that allow us to really be able to focus on what we would call our true north, in order to be able to make sure that mission is delivered. But I would say probably more importantly, that we're taking care of our staff, that we're taking care of our donors, and then we're taking care of our organization. So if you don't have a current plan, get ready to take some notes. We'll have some pieces and parts that you can implement right now. If you do have a plan and haven't accessed it recently, it is time to dig it out from wherever it is on a file share that we haven't accessed recently because we don't have the password. Maybe it's in a binder that's being used as a doorstop. Maybe it really hasn't been adjusted since your organization decided to exist, right, from the original articles of incorporation. So here's our litmus right now. Let's pretend for a second that you have a plan and that you've actually dug it out between February 21st and now. So most good strategic plans have 3 to 5 overarching goals, big, hairy, audacious goals for the organization. And it's time for you to be able to take a peek at those goals to see, in light of what has happened to your business in the last 6 to 8 weeks, are those goals still relevant? And the decision-making factors look like this: based on current healthcare realities, based on current economic realities, based on, and not just for you, right? For those you serve, because those certainly end up marrying up, and based on whether you are what I would call a first tier or second tier nonprofit, and I'll explain that in a second. Are there new goals that ought to be added to the plan in order for you to make the pivot from just hanging on right now in terms of survival to being in a stronger business position when things settle down for us? And I'm not going to say until this is gone or until things are normal, because I don't know when COVID is going to be gone, and I don't know when things are going to be normal. What we want is for you to be able to move from reactive to proactive in terms of business decisions. So I mentioned first tier and second tier. As we have been working through, hey, when is it appropriate to ask for money and when is it not? Or when is it appropriate to open versus when is it not? Never mind the state health mandate. We have kind of sussed out that there's a first tier and a second tier of nonprofits, and in terms of how you're affected. First tier is your mission with COVID totally out of the picture involves food scarcity, involves health and human services, involves making sure that there's housing over people's heads. Those are first tier nonprofits, right? Again, shelter, safety, food. And those certainly have elevated in the last 6 to 8 weeks because of the health and economic crisis. That is not to say that our second tier nonprofits are not being equally impacted. What it means is that the landscape automatically really focuses like a laser on, oh my heavens, we need to take care of those nonprofits who are serving are most in need. If you are an arts organization, if you provide athletic programming, if you are a museum, if you have programs that you offer and you've had to be shuttered, you most certainly are impacted by this, right? But the filter that we need to look at is, what pieces and parts are you being impacted by because you're first tier or because you're a second tier? And that will help you actually start to adjust some of your goals. So I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, hit me in the chat or you can hit me offline. So if we don't have a current plan, and current plan, what that means to me is you and your board have sat down in the last 1 to 2 years and have either updated a plan or have created a new plan. Because most strategic plans are not any longer than 2 to 3 years. They used to be 3 to 5, and we've pivoted and we've really said, hey, the world moves so fast right now that in order for us to really be on time, real time with planning and the ability to be flexible and nimble, that we shouldn't have them for more than 2 to 3 years. So if you don't have a plan, or if you have a plan and you need to adapt, this would be the time to be clarifying mission, vision, values of organization. What is our current stake in the ground? What are we doing, right? Vision, true north. That's our aspiration. If we were to run ourselves out of business, what would that look like? 2, how do we actually achieve that vision? What are we doing to be able to impact that landscape? And what are your core values? Because any business decisions that you are making for the foreseeable future have to be in lockstep with those three things. If you are even contemplating taking on something else that doesn't absolutely fit there, it's not going to work in a healthy economy, and certainly not right now. The next big piece in terms of if we don't have a plan or if we need to adapt, having conversations about the plan right now, it solidifies everyone's engagement with what you're doing. So if we're going to be making any changes to the plan, if we are even considering adapting or lessening or adding on to, we need to be making sure that all of our stakeholders that are a part of delivering on the plan are included in this conversation. So certainly there should be board members that are included. Certainly there should be staff members. And if you are a smaller organization and depend on volunteers to do an awful lot of your execution of daily activities that are in the plan, then we should be consulting some of them as well. If we are doing that, then they're engaged. And if there's engagement, there's much more likely to be execution. If any of you function remotely like me, and for those of you guys who know me, know a little type A, a little controlling, certainly firstborn, I tend to behave, I'm not going to call it badly. I'm going to call it, I behave differently when information is withheld from me. I behave certainly differently and probably not my finest hour if I'm not communicated with. And so this is the time, again, if we're thinking of creating a plan or adapting a plan, where communication is going to be king and queen for you guys. So the next piece when we're thinking about either adapting the plan or pivoting the plan or creating a small plan is we just have to know that we're going to have some additional challenges that are coming forth. Right now, your current plan, you might not be able to hit some of the goals on it because of the fact that we're having to work from home. Or maybe not all of our staff has the same band of internet, or maybe we don't have all of our files, or we can't deliver programs because people really need to be on premise, and delivering them virtually is very difficult. So we just have to know that there's going to be some challenges, and based on the magnitude of those challenges, that is going to help you make a decision as to, hey, is this an important part of our plan right now, or is this something we have to put pause on? It's not that we're not going to have to make some difficult decisions. It's we have to make them based on what we know we can and can't control right now. Another piece for you to consider as we're thinking, do we need to adapt or do we need to plan, is using something that we call a framework and decision matrix. And I actually have a couple of PDFs of those that I would be happy to throw into my follow-up for Evan that she'll send to you. They're basically if-then charts. So if it's this group of people, they need to be involved in this piece of this strategy. If this information is true, then we need to pivot here. And it really helps in terms of cutting down on overwhelm. And it certainly helps on cutting down how you're going to go through and make decisions in an objective manner, right? Not based on emotion, not based on stress. It allows you a framework to work through things very with methodology, with care for sure, but it's very objective. And I'm happy to throw those templates into the follow-up so that you have those to really start to work with you and your board. The next piece that I would say, and I would say this is probably the most important result for you taking the time to look at either current plan or how we need to pivot your current plan, is this is the most legitimate fundraising and marketing document that you will have to begin talking with donors about your current and future position. So if you've taken a look at your current plan and decided we are or aren't adapting and why, you're going to have real numbers, right? Real stories, real storytelling and case for support to be able to share with individuals when you begin to ask for money again. And as a sidebar soapbox, folks, you're going to have to ask for money. if you haven't done it already. This is impacting you either from a health perspective or from an economic perspective. And all of you on this call are in different situations. Some of you may have a reserve for 4 years. Some of you had a reserve for 17 hot minutes. Right? It's everywhere and in betwixt. Know that the raising of money still continues and that it is not our place to make the decision for the donor. What is our place is to make sure that we've got up-to-date plans, details, numbers, where the donor can plug in to help make an impact and support you. So, end of soapbox. Okay. So here is another, I'll call it another if-then framework for you to be able to work off of, especially when a board member or a staff member or perhaps a stakeholder in the community says, hey, so I thought that your plan was really solid. Why are you thinking about adapting it? Well, you've run through these questions. So you're reviewing a core strategy or a core goal. If there has been a major shift externally or internally, then yes, you would move along to take corrective action. If not, and I haven't met anyone yet that there hasn't been a major shift, then you would go on to measuring performance and measure gaps and then move along to corrective action. And again, if there hasn't been any issues with performance or gaps, then you would consider or continue the present course. So this is a great graphic to hold on to when things are less chaotic, but certainly it allows you the framework now to say, hey, if there's been a shift, then we got it correct, right? We've got to take a look at this and make a course adaptation. Oh, and you might have a cat. Tyson has decided to be on the other side of the screen, which means in a moment, the 17-pound wonderkind will show up and you can all say hello. All right. Okay, so strategic plan review, right? Again, let's do some pretending as to you've got one or you have a framework for one. Another time that we have to look at this, and I've already received a call from a couple of you saying, hey, we're finally thinking that it might be good to partner with another nonprofit in order for us to stay viable and in order for us to be able to stay in business. Great. Some of you have actually elevated that conversation to say, you know what, we got to merge. This program that we are delivering as its own 501c3 is really just that. It's a fabulous program, but it's not enough to be a sustaining business, and we need to merge. Well, then we should be looking at that plan, right? If you have discovered, as a couple of you who have on the call have been brave enough to tell me in the last couple weeks, that you have been a catch-all for community ventures. And what I mean by that is you've had people that you respect in the community, well-meaning donors, potentially a former founder, and when people have said, hey, you know what, you should do this, and you said yes, even though it hasn't really been a part of your mission. Well, this is the time, right, that we actually have to run all of our programs and services through vision, mission, core values. And if they all fit, great. But if they don't, right, we need to address mission drift, because we can only continue on in a position of strength with your plan if all of what you do helps to achieve your mission. The third reason that you would want to be looking at your strategic plan and adapting it would be, has there been substantial changes in your business? And for some of you, I'm going to guess that involves cash and cash position. And you might be having to take a look at, hey, because we've had to furlough or lay off staff, we can't deliver these programs, and that's actually going to impact us long term. It might well be that you aren't able to bring on as many staff as you had before, or that you have to adjust benefits. Again, don't know what that answer is, but these are all reasons why an adaptation of the plan is going to be important, minimally at least a review, because that will allow you to be able to pivot where you need to, right? So here's your adaptation checklist. So a question, right, to be able to ask is, should your goals be changed? And there always needs to be a why behind that. It's not a knee jerk. It's not cutting the program off at the knees or cutting the service off at the knees. Is why would we want to change that goal? The next piece on this is it realistic? And realistic means to me, are the current goals on your plan still realistic? And it's not just the goal. Is the objective realistic to hit each goal? Are the strategies that you've put together to reach each goal still legit? And certainly, do we need to be looking at the time frame? In January 2020, when you first adopted this plan, you might have been on track to be able to put away reserves for 6 months of business expenses by the end of December 2020. That might well need to be adjusted. The goal is still absolutely spot on, right? Cash flow, risk management, but the time frame that you can get this done may need to be adjusted. Same thing with deadline, right? If we have deadlines for certain pieces, we're going to need to modify them. I'm sure that you are all better at this than I am, but what we have, and actually I've gotten better at it over 5 years, working at home takes a different diligence than working in the office. And working at home, when you have other distractions that need care, children, homeschooling, perhaps your doggy daycare is closed. I'm guessing it is. Maybe you have a partner, spouse, roommate that's also having to work at home. We have to be really real as leaders and managers with our boards with regard to deadline modification on these, because what we are seeing, and if anyone's getting more than 2 good hours at home a day, you let me know. I'm going to send you a bottle of wine. If you've got kids and if you've got other people at home, you only have a certain amount of time to do really focused work. So we need to be real about those deadlines so that we don't set up false expectations. We also have to look at the staffing piece on this. If we've had to lay off staff, that means that staff are not implementing on programs or services. So we need to adjust on that. There needs to be, again, board level, executive director, a serious conversation on, should your organization's focus change to only focusing on one of the goals? If there is a goal in your current plan that certainly has to do with risk management or finances, this might be an all court press on just that goal. And we are shelving the rest of the goals until we are in a different position. There's not a right or a wrong on any of those. What matters is that there's a discussion piece. So this might have all felt a little heavy, and here's where we lighten this up a little bit. So something I have seen already that has been pretty remarkable, and I'm going to guess you have seen this in each of your communities. So with all of the horror that's been happening, and horror and so many horror and sadness and so many things, man, we've seen folks stand and deliver. I don't know how many of you have seen It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood with Tom Hanks. I got to see it I say a couple weeks ago. I guess it was a month ago. And there is a news program in Spokane, one of the news shows, that is really focusing on finding the helpers. And my guess is that there's been finding the helpers going on in each of your communities. But part of the finding of the helpers is, so there's some things we're all learning about where we're strong as nonprofits and where we need some significant shoring up. And my encouragement to you is, when you're finding something that's not working right now, write it down. And more importantly, when you're finding something that's working, write it down. We are going to come out of this and we will be stronger because of it. There's going to be some things that change, for sure. But if we're seeing things that are working, we want to replicate that. And you each have had a win at least once a day. Sometimes it feels like those are buried in the, oh my heavens, well, that didn't work out like I thought it was going to. Zoom call buffering, or having board members remember that they actually can call in for a meeting, right, instead of showing up in person. we all have fails during the day, but we have key learnings that are coming out every day. And it's really important as we adapt to remember what those are. So now we got to implement, right? So maybe this is the time we pinky swear that if we have a strategic plan, we're actually going to make sure it's on our desk every day. And if we are going to implement or adapt, then we actually need to start implementing. There's a couple of you on the call that I've had the pleasure of working with on their plans, and I have seen the remarkable success that has happened, and you all know who you are, over the course of the last year, because you've actually moved the plan to action, right? A plan doesn't do diddly squat for you unless we're actually implementing it. And what I would share with just the most honesty right now is we all need something we can control at work, for sure. This isn't a session about, what's going on in home life, right? This is just work. So having an adapted plan allows you to actually focus on something and control something. And what we know is this, right? So we know that implementation is the most difficult part of any sort of plan. And there's not one factor that's going to make or break this for you. What we do know is that if you're regularly reviewing the plan, and reviewing means, hey, this is a part of your board agenda, that your board committees work is actually driven by pieces and parts in your plan, that your staff performance objectives have to do with your plan. We know that if you've actually taken plan and helped to move it into daily implementation, that 90% of businesses that have plans are going to be around in the next year. And that's the stat that comes out of Harvard, right? They're not messing around with this. So if we've got a plan, even if we've had to pivot, it gives you much more likelihood that we're going to be seeing each other on the other end of this. And that could mean that you're creating a plan now. That might be part of April, as to put something together for yourself so you've got a piece that you can control in your business right now. So what does this look like for you right now? Well, let me tell you. Our friend Peter Drucker, if you haven't read any of his books, if you've got time, I'd recommend it, right? So we know that we can't predict. I mentioned my fuzzy crystal ball earlier on, but we can create. I had a board member ask me the other day, how do you plan if you don't know when this is going to end? I don't have that answer. But what I do know right now is that we've got two kinds of organizations that are functioning. We have organizations that aren't wanting to address any of this stuff because it's scary, right? That we're overwhelmed and we don't know what to do with this. And then we have the organizations where, again, leading with boards and boards supporting their executive directors, you guys are starting to zig and zag. You don't quite know where it is we're going to go, but you want to start to move forward. You want to be a part of the creation of it. And those are the organizations that will end up coming out of this stronger, right, than ever. So they had asked me for an hour on this, and there's not an hour to be able to share more about what you guys need to do, but there is this. So many of you know how to find me, and I've got my website here, and I've got my email address here. Evan and Carrie and Amy and the rest of the staff at the Idaho Nonprofit Center know that I have a link on my website, and I will put it in the follow-up, where you all can book free 1/2 hour calls with me. And there's no cap on those calls. And there's two different ways to look at this. I have a specific link to help people that are dealing with COVID issues right now. And that's everything from how to tier staff layoffs, to how to fundraise, to how to recoup money from special events, how to help boards govern during this time. So if you need help yesterday, then you'll use that link and book a call with me, and I'm available on 5 days of the week for those calls. If you're doing okay right now, and many of us are, because of either mission of organization or how things have been structured at your business, and you don't need help right now, but you'd love someone to spitball an idea with in the next month, or you want someone to proof a fundraising letter, or you need to restructure your employee manual, then you'll book a call with me on Mondays. Mondays, I always offer free calls in what I call nonprofit therapy, and I don't have a cap on those either. So this has been recorded. I've got a couple of PDFs that I'm going to be sending you besides the deck. I've got those decision-making framework pieces, and you'll also receive a recording of this session. I am happy to spend one-on-one time with any of you, either here in the chat or offline, on how we would pivot your strategic plan. And I just want to make sure that I thank all of you for the work that you're doing in this sector. It's a heavy lift right now. It's tiring, and it's absolutely worth it. And I'm here to support you however I possibly can. So thank you for your work. And I'm going to look in the chat right now for any questions. I am not seeing any, but I'm going to give it once or twice before I give you guys about a half an hour back in your day to attend to the things that are most important, which right now also are drinking water and eating healthy food. So, okay, I'm not seeing anything, so I will say farewell, and I'll look forward to seeing you on my calendar if I can be of service. Take care.